Hello BookTube, Sarah here and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with a weekly reads for June the 2nd of 2018. In my weekly reads videos I talk about, of course, the books that I finished this week, and I let you know what I am currently reading. So before I start, I want to say thank you to everybody for all your kind words for my talk with my grandmother last week. It really meant a lot to me. You know, you guys are all super fantastic, and I thank you all so very much. You know, it's still hard. I still, because it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and a part of me is still expecting that when I go over tomorrow I'm going to see her, and we're going to be doing Sunday dinner, and, you know, so it's hard, but, you know, we kind of, we get through it, and we don't forget. That's the big thing, is that we keep the person alive, in our memories and in our hearts, and all those wonderful things, and I know she will be, and she was much loved and will be remembered by a lot of people for a long time. So, all that being said, let's jump into everything. I got 4 books done this week. I am still drinking my coffee from McDonald's this morning. It's not even this morning anymore, it's like 3 in the afternoon, but I got up a little bit late. I actually slept in a bit this morning, which was kind of nice. I slept till almost 9. Then I ended up taking my mom out, and then I came home and I actually laid back down and had a nap for like an hour. I've just been so tired, and it's been so nice being able to catch up on sleep, so that's great. Anyway, like I said, 4 books, and all of them were really great. But most of what I read this week was fantastic, and I'm so thrilled. So, let's get started. The first book that I finished this week was The Friends We Keep by Susan Mallery. This is a chick-lit novel. It's not a contemporary romance per se. Romance isn't the main theme of the book. It's more of a chick-lit novel. It is the second book in the Mischief Bay series. It was narrated on audio by Tanya Eby, or Eby, I think. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce her name. I know she says it like at the start of every recording, and I always think, okay, remember how it's said. I'm pretty sure it's Eby. It was published in 2016 by Mira. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.96 stars, and I gave this one 5 stars. I loved this book so much. I got 2 challenges completed out of this one. The May 2018 monthly challenge for the RRRC, it was for number 6, which was May 4th, Star Wars Day. You had to find a book title that you could spell the word Star Wars out of the title, and this one fit. And bonus points, Star Wars was actually mentioned in the book. It was funny, at one point 2 of the characters were talking about something, and the movie Star Wars was brought up, and I'm like, that's awesome, considering that was a challenge. The second challenge was for the Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs Quarterly Challenge. I got Opal, which is read a book with at least 5 colors on the cover or a fiery romance. This is such a bright, colorful cover. I think it fit perfectly. So this just worked out to be like the perfect storm of a book. It's by a very favorite author of mine. It is from a great series that I love. It features amazing characters. And I think at the time and place I was when I was reading this, which was earlier this week, it was just kind of what I've needed in this kind of, I don't want to say darker time, but this little bit of a sadder time that I've been dealing with. And it just kind of accumulated to be a 5-star read for me. This book made me cry. It made me laugh. It was absolutely fantastic. The female friendships, which is the basis of this novel, is fantastic. I don't want to get too much into the actual plot of this. Typically with a lot of these series, like these contemporary romance series and things like that, and even chick-lit series by Susan Mallery, is that they can be read as standalones. It might be part of a series, but that series maybe all takes place in the same town or features the same group of characters, but each story is about a different couple. In this case, it's not. The first story, The Girls of Mischief Bay, follows 3 women and 3 friends. The second book follows another one of those women. Like, her story, she kind of had an ending in the first book, but then this is kind of like the second part, the next chapter, if you will, in her story, and it follows her along with 2 other women. So the 3 women are going through things that are very different. You know, the first woman, like I said, her story is kind of carrying over from the first one. Her name's Nicole. The other girl, I'm blanking on names now. This is so horrible of me. Gabby is a mother, a second wife actually, but her and her husband have a set of twins together, and then they also have she has a teenage stepdaughter, and she's dealing with some issues with that teenage stepdaughter. And then the third woman, whose name is, I'm absolutely drawing a blank, I want to say it's Hannah. She's dealing with infertility. So these are very poignant topics, very, you know, true to life topics. It was really, really great. Again, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil anything for the first book, but I absolutely recommend these. They are clean romances. There's a couple scenes that are adult in nature, but they happen behind closed doors. So you're not getting anything overly graphic. There might be one or two swear words in here, but, you know, all in all, these are relatively clean novels and so, so good. If you like a great novel about female friendship and struggles and things that females deal with, you know, and families and things like that, I absolutely recommend these. There's a third book in the series called A Million Things or A Million Little Things. I can't remember the title of it, but I'm very much looking forward to getting to that one very soon, because it again carries over from a few of the, like one of these characters into that book. So that's kind of like your bridge between the books. So yeah, absolutely loved it. Highly, highly recommend this book. The next book that I finished was Must Love Otters by Eliza Gordon. This is a contemporary romance, and it was narrated on audio by Romy Nordlinger. It was published in 2013 by West 26th Street Press, NYC. It has an average rating on Goodreads of 3.89 stars, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. I had a few issues with it at the beginning, but they kind of resolved themselves, and I ended up really enjoying this book. 2 challenges for this one as well. For the monthly challenge number 4 for May the 1st, International Workers' Day. This is one I think you had to do where somebody took a vacation, and the main character in this one, Holly, goes on like a vacation kind of retreat. And the second, again, for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs challenge, I got Grumpy, which was read a book with a character who needs to smile more. And Holly definitely at the beginning of this book is quite down on her luck. So the premise of the story is, like I said, it's about a woman named Holly, and she works dispatch for 911, which in itself can be a very stressful job. Her work environment is not the greatest. She doesn't really get along that well with her coworkers, and she's being written up for something that happened during a phone call. When someone who you are calling an ambulance for, or what have you, if that person ends up passing away, there of course is an investigation, I guess. Not an investigation per se, but I guess they speak to the dispatch to make sure that they did everything that they should have done. And so she's at that point, and her boyfriend, she breaks up with him because you don't like him right from the beginning. He's got 2 yappy dogs, and he just doesn't seem to really care about her, and, you know, things like that. And so she's kind of like, you know, she's not sure about her job. She's not sure if this is what she wants to do for the rest of her life. She's just split with her boyfriend, and her father had given her a gift certificate to a kind of spa resort retreat up in British Columbia. So she lives in Portland, Oregon. I always say Oregon wrong. I apologize. Oregon. And she's traveling up to BC. And so this book predominantly takes place in Canada, which is a lot of fun. And especially on the BC coast, like north on the BC coast. And so she arrives at this place, and she meets this guy named Roger, who like kind of, you know, is like courting her and, you know, making her feel real special and all these things. And then she's also kind of got this like ongoing battle with this guy named Ryan. And Ryan ends up actually being the love interest. That's not really a spoiler if you read the back of the book, but it really doesn't happen until later in the book. So like I said, this book was a bit problematic at the beginning. At the beginning, I didn't really like Holly, I'll be honest. She had a lot of internal thoughts that I thought edged way too far on the dark side. Like she's talking about her ex-boyfriend's dogs and how she hates them and wishes that they would die. Like that's just a little much for me. You can wish that they would go away. You know, we've all been there. We've all had something like that. But, you know, and then the same with her downstairs neighbor. She has this little old lady who lives downstairs with this ancient old cat. And, you know, the old lady, you know, asks her, can you go get me milk or cat food for Mr. Boots or whatever? And Holly just thinks in her own head that, you know, wouldn't it be lovely if she just dropped dead? And I just thought, you are an extremely unlikable character. Like I said, she did redeem herself, but still, it's hard to come back from that. She didn't voice these thoughts out loud. They were all in her head. And I know we've all kind of been there. We've all kind of had... Now, again, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate because at the time, she was undergoing a lot of stress. and stress does stuff to people. Again, she didn't voice anything out loud. She wouldn't actually do anything. But still, I just thought that they were, you know, not the nicest of thoughts. The other side note on this one, and the reason, I mean, I gave it 4 stars, so I really did enjoy it. But the other thing that kind of bothered me is this book has excessive swearing in it. Excessive. And swearing is not something that bothers me. You know, I can read swearing in a book and not even bat an eyelash. But in this case, by the 2nd chapter, my first thought was, there's a lot of swearing in this book. If I was thinking that, there's a lot of swearing in the book. I'll tell you that. Because in my outside of my booktube life, I will be honest, I have known to throw around a few colorful swear words every now and then. Usually at the office. After I've had a particularly bad phone call with a customer. You know, it's part of my day-to-day. It is in my vocabulary. You know, think what you want. But, you know, I know that there's a time and a place for it. But for Holly, it seemed to be excessive. The other thing in the book that I found, and at first when the first thing started happening, I was kind of like, really? But then as it went on, I'm like, is the author doing this just strictly to see how far they can push the envelope? Because some things happen to Holly that are just so unbelievable. How did she even survive? And then you realize after like the 3rd thing, it's like, okay, is this like that kind of like a slapstick kind of comedy? And I took it for what it was, and I just rolled with it. But like, for example, she ends up stranded out in a boat in like off the BC coast, like they're on an inlet, and underneath the boat comes a family of killer whales, a mama, a daddy, a mama, and a baby. She falls into the water, and they don't immediately consume her, which is, I'm sure, what would have happened, you know, if we were watching a nature documentary. So, you know, like, she was able to get back in the boat, and it's kind of like, you're like, okay, you know, I understand you kind of need Holly to advance the story, so you needed her to live, but it just seemed a little too out there. And then, you know, that same trip, she ends up then stranded on the beach overnight, and how she doesn't freeze to death. And then at the end, there's another animal attack, and she survives that. And, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but it just got to the point where it was like, okay, I get it. I get what you're doing here, you know. But it was a fun story. I really liked Ryan. I haven't talked about him very much, but he's pretty, Concierge Ryan, as she always calls him. He's got his own kind of backstory. This book is available as part of the Audible Romance package, so if you're interested, give it a listen. If you have the Audible Romance package, it's not going to cost you anything. And yeah, I did, at the end of the day, I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. But just know going in that there were some of these issues and things like that. The next book that I finished was Returning Pride by Jill Sanders. This is another contemporary romance novel. It is book number 3 in the Pride series. Also narrated on audio by Tanya Eby, or Eby. This was published in 2013 by Jill Sanders, so I believe it was a self-published work. It has an average rating of 4.18 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3 stars. I got the May Monthly Challenge, number 5, which was National Barbecue Month, which I think is to read something that was summery or colorful or something like that. So yeah, this story is about Allison and Ian. And Ian you met in the first 2 books. He is the brother of the main characters in book 1 and book 2. So this is kind of following the family, if you will. And he's deaf. He's been deaf since he was 18. There was a tragic boating accident on his 18th birthday that his father died in, unfortunately, and Ian lost his hearing. He has now gone on, it's 10 years later, to being a very famous, not a famous chef, but he's a very well-known chef in town. They have their own restaurant and things like that. It's a family establishment. And this happens a couple years after the 2nd book. So, you know, just for timeline purposes. Allison was a girl that he liked in high school, and she liked him. But it was never, nothing really ever came of it. They went on a few dates, but nothing really ever came too much about it. She's back in town because she just felt the urge to come back, and she literally walks, like in the very first chapter of the book, she walks into the house, like back to her mother's home, and the house is in shambles, and her mother's running a fever, and she's very, very sick. Well, then they find out that the mother has Alzheimer's. And so Allison has to deal with that. And then she's dealing with kind of these feelings for Ian and things like that. So the relationship between Allison and Ian kind of go from there. But they're dealing, my issue with this and why I only gave this book 3 stars is because I didn't find a lot of conflict in this book. I do like some conflict in my romance. I'm sorry. That's kind of what really makes the book. You know, once they got together, that's it, that they were together. And, you know, the conflict came externally. It wasn't internally, I should say. So it wasn't conflict with their own personal feelings or within their relationship. It was external conflict. She had, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but she was kind of teaching some children and comes to realize that a few of these children are perhaps being abused at home. And then she has some run-ins with the father for these children and things, like very, very dangerous run-ins, and she's kind of hiding out. And, you know, it just, everything seemed to come very easily to these characters as well, too. And again, you're missing some of the conflict. You know, that, you know, maybe you need to try for things. Maybe not everything needs to come this easily. The other thing I found, and I've said this in a lot of books, you guys know, a good sex scene is a good sex scene. I have no problem with them in books. My problem comes when they seem to take place of an actual plot. And in this case, once Ian and Allison got together, they were like rabbits. And it was like constant. It was kind of like, okay, I get it. They're together again. Can we advance the story some more, please? And, you know, like, it seemed a bit excessive. Like, they're doing it on a boat. In the hull part, like where I guess you would sleep, or like a yacht, you know, like a fancy boat. Not the kind of boat I've ever been on. Well, I've been on a cruise ship, but still. And the entire family is upstairs. Like, really? Like, it just seemed to be a little much. And, you know, but all in all, I do like these stories. I do like the writing. You know, I'm enjoying them. It was nice visiting with some of the characters from the first couple books. And I will continue on. I think there's 6 books in total in this series. Again, this one, my major issue with it was lack of conflict between the characters themselves. There was conflict, like I said, her dealing with this, the father of these children, and he's dealing with coming to the grip, like, you know, with losing he's actually seeing his dad's ghost. And part of my other issue was that that was never resolved. So I'm hoping it'll be resolved in a future book, of him, like, kind of not having hallucinations, but he's also dealing with, like, these massive migraine headaches that he's getting because of his hearing loss. And, you know, like, that kind of really wasn't dealt with either, other than here, take these pills. But, like, is there something that's going to come of that? You know what I mean? So all in all, didn't dislike it, didn't love it, absolutely average book. Again, another one available on the Audible romance package. So if you're interested, check out this series. I believe the entire series is available there. So if, you know, it's your cup of tea, definitely check it out. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying these are some of the issues that I found with it. And the last book that I finished this week was Some Kind of Wonderful by Sarah Morgan. And it was, guys, it really, really was wonderful. This was a contemporary romance novel. It's book number 2 in the Puffin Island series. It was published in 2015 by HQN. It has an average rating of 4.12 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 5 stars. Funny story, I'll tell you that in just a second. So for my May monthly challenge, I got May 22nd, which is World Goth Day. And Goth Day started in the UK, and you had to read an author that was from the UK. Sarah Morgan is UK born and raised. I'm sure she resides there. I know she's British. And this was my 21st out of 45th book for the Stacking the Series challenge. So as I said, funny story about the star rating on this. When I first finished the book, I'm like, oh my god, this is 4 stars all the way. I loved it. Then I started thinking about it because I finished it last night, and I'm like, I actually think it's 4.5 stars. So I changed my rating to 4.5 stars. And then this morning I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about the videos I need to do today, and I'm thinking about this book, and I'm like, all right, so why didn't I give it 5 stars? What problems did I have with it? And I couldn't think of a single thing. Now it's 5 stars. Isn't that funny? That if you're given enough time to think about something, your rating can totally change on it. This book was fantastic. It was Brittany and Zach's story. Brittany and Zach, you met in the first book. What was the first book called? Maybe This Time, I think, is the first book. And there's actually a 0.5 in this series that I've never read. It's a Harlequin Presents novel. But that book doesn't tie at all into the first book. It ties into this book. Because the character that you meet named Lily at the very, very beginning of this book is the character from that first Presents novel, which I don't know what it's called. Something about a Greek billionaire, I think. But I've never read it. I have no need to go and read it. I don't feel the need to go and read their story. Of all the Harlequin series, as much as I love them, the Presents novels are the ones that I don't care for as much. From the majority of them that I've read, I haven't enjoyed the majority of them, so that's why I tend not to read them. But it is a Sarah Morgan, so maybe I will one day pick it up, but we shall see. Anyway, doesn't matter. So Brittany and Zach, they were married 10 years earlier, like when they were 18. It was very quick. It was very like an, oh, let's get married. You know, we're so in love kind of idea. He has a really bad backstory. He was abused by his parents. He ended up being put in foster care, and he kind of had a really difficult childhood growing up, and he ended up spending a summer at Camp Puffin on Puffin Island, which is a little island off the coast of Maine, where all these residents, all these people live. And then, you know, he ended up getting adopted by the people who run the camp, and, you know, things like that. So you meet Zach right off the bat, and I really, really loved him. I really did. He was such a flawed character, but so wonderful. He had such a good heart. And there are some wonderful scenes in this book with him and Brittany. This book did have some spicy scenes in it, but they were absolutely, in my opinion, like, well placed. Do you know what I mean? Like, it made sense for that scene to be there, and then you got on with the story. Unlike I was talking about the last book, where it was kind of like sex scene, story, sex scene, story. This was like story, little sex scene, story, you know, like, that's what I want to see, is character growth and conflict. The conflict between Brittany and Zach, because it didn't work the first time. He keeps telling her, I'm not the man for you. I'm not the person that is going to be there for you. That you know my past, you know my background. But she loves him, and she knows that he can be that person. And then she finds out that, you know, then at the very end, when everything kind of accumulates, you know, it's a heartwarming scene, and I just loved this book so much. I am so looking forward to getting on to the third book, which is it's a Christmas book, I know that, and it is on my list to read in December, so I will have this series finished this year. There's only the 3 books in the series, but it is fabulous. I am such a fan of Sarah Morgan. I really, really am, and I talk about her all the time, and it was so funny because she posted on Instagram the other day that she was standing outside a building downtown Toronto, and she's like, this is where Suits is filmed. And it's the new offices for Harlequin downtown. And I'm like, you're in my town. I'm like, can I get down there and stalk her? Can I just take one of her books and say, can you sign this for me, please? Because that would be such a thrill to me. But yes, I am such a big fan of hers. I absolutely recommend her books. I know, I think Bree and Ash from Ash Hart's books are currently reading Sleepless in Manhattan, which is the part of the Manhattan with Love series, which I adore. I plan on getting on to book number 4 this summer, and possibly even book number 5, because I think book 6 is another Christmas book. So I'd like to get those 2 done so I can get to the Christmas book, but that's a totally different series. So anyway, highly recommend it. Please read these. They are fantastic. So what am I currently reading? My current audiobook is, You Say It First by Susan Mallery. This is book number 1 in the Happily Inc. series, and it is narrated on audio by, wait for it, Tanya Ebby. I did this last year, I'm sure, with with Karen White, you know, with reading a bunch of Jill Shalvis, that she always narrates those ones. I guess Tanya Ebby, she narrates a lot of the ones for Susan Mallery, so I've been getting a lot of her narration, which is great. This series is so adorable. It is kind of an offshot of the Fool's Gold series by Susan Mallery. You do not have to have read one to read this one. My plan is, once I'm actually done reading through the Crew of Hunters books at 1 a month, I do plan on doing the exact same thing with the Fool's Gold series, because I think there's something like 20 some odd books in that series. So I'd like to do 1 a month, minus the Christmas, well, you know, like, unless I hit a Christmas book, then I have to wait till the holidays to read it. But once I'm done the Crew of Hunters, that's my plan. But this series, like I said, kind of is an offshot of the Fool's Gold, and it takes place in a town called Happily Inc., California. And this entire town is built around the wedding industry. So pretty much everybody who lives and works in the town has something to do with putting on destination weddings. It is such a brilliant concept, like, for a series, seriously. There's plans for 4 books. The first 2 are released, the second 2 are coming out later this year, and there is a novella that takes place at Christmas time. Spoiler alert for my book haul that I'm doing this week, I bought the novella. But anyway, this is the story of Palace, is her first name, or her name, and Nick. And she runs a company called Weddings in a Box, and she kind of puts on these weddings for brides and things like that, or couples, I should say. Nick is a very famous artist, and he's kind of taking some downtime before he takes a job in Dubai. And he agrees to work on these wood panels for her to like bring them back to looking how they should look. And of course the relationship between the two of them goes from there. It's Susan Mallery. These are fabulous books. I mean, you can't go wrong with this author at all, in my opinion. And the concept for this series is so great, and you're meeting all the friends, all of Palace's friends, which you know are going to be showing up in later books. And yes, I highly, highly recommend this series. I recommend anything by this author, to be completely honest. My current ebook is Odd Man Out by B.J. Daniels. This is one, there's a reason I picked up this book, but I do not want to say why that is just yet. It is something very exciting that's going to be coming towards the end of the month. Yeah, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm reading this book by B.J. Daniels. This was actually her very first book ever published. I found it. It is available on ebook, either on the Harlequin website or on Kindle. So please go check it out if you're interested. This is about a woman whose parents died when she was very young, and she went to go live with her uncle, her dad's brother. And it is now she's in her 20s, and her uncle was mysteriously murdered. And it's kind of her trying to find out who the killer is. I'm only about 3 chapters into it. I just started it, but I'm really enjoying it. B.J. Daniels, I mean, like I said, this is her first book, but you can already see what kind of author she was going to become. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm still reading The Secret of the Old Clock by Carolyn Keene. I almost said it was by Nancy Drew. By Carolyn Keene, the very first book in the Nancy Drew Mystery Stories series. I'm reading only a couple chapters every night before bed. I'm not expecting to fly through these. These are more of like a cleansing the palate before I go to bed kind of book, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 70% of the way through it, so I should actually finish it this weekend, and then I can start on book number 2 in the series, so I'm very excited about that. And last but not least, yes guys, I am still reading this. I'm getting frustrated with myself because I was doing so good this week, and I was reading my page count every day, and then it all went to heck in a handbasket on Wednesday, and this will get done this weekend. That is my plan. So this is The Farmer's Wife by Lori Handeland. I'm really, really liking this story. And I'm so close to being done, guys. Like, I am on page 230 of 200, and I'm on page 230 of 300. So I've got 70 pages left. I can finish that this weekend. Absolutely. So yes, and then I can start my next print book. Because again, spoiler alert for my my book haul, I bought a whole bunch more print books. So yeah, I am enjoying doing this, but these are taking me far too long to get through, and I'm very disappointed in myself. I know I shouldn't do that, but this just goes to show how difficult it is for me to read an actual physical book. Like, I need to make the time. That's the thing. Facebook is not that important. I can get off Facebook and read a book. I just think that's good general advice for everybody. So anyway, yes, so that is everything that I am currently reading and things like that. Before I let you guys go, of course, I'm going to show you my my knitting. Excuse me for reaching. I put this away. This is what I'm working on this weekend. Sorry, my husband just wandered into the room rather goofily. He was doing interpretive dance, I believe. So this sweater, I'm hoping to have this done in the next few weeks as well. This is my campsite cardie, designed by Eliza Plummer. Guys, I'm so excited. Check it out. It's almost done. So I'm almost done the bottom. So this is obviously, so it's a cardigan, as you can see. Look at the patterning on the back of it. Isn't that gorgeous? You can see it, the light hitting through it. All those, oh, I love it. So I'm just doing the ribbing right now on the bottom. And then I am, now that I'm looking at it in the camera, you can see how dark the bottom is. I changed, like I added in a new ball of yarn, but whatever, c'est la vie. So yeah, and then I just have to put the sleeves on and do the front button band. There's not going to be any buttons on this, but still, you need a button band just to kind of make it all look clean and nice. And then this will be done, and I'll have it to wear, and I'm so excited. It's so squishy and soft, and I'm so, so happy with it. So yes, absolutely loving it. That is what I will be working on this weekend. Well, I am listening to an audiobook, I'm sure. And I need to read. I need to read that book. I need to finish it. But yeah, so anyway, guys, that is it for this this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. Sorry about that. So, videos coming up this week. As I alluded to, there will be a book haul, a small ebook haul, and a large print book haul coming. And, oh yes, and as I was saying, my monthly wrap-up from May. And again, I wanted to thank you guys. I'm going to mention this in that video as well. But a lot of you gave me great feedback on my April wrap-up, that you really liked the way it was done. So I'm going to continue on with that this month as well. So anyway, guys, that is it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me, you know, any comments or questions in the comment section below. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Until then, take care and happy reading. Bye, guys.